Hey, have you been thinking about downsizing? If you have, you might have been hearing about these 55 plus communities, or what's known as active adult communities, and you're probably wondering, would that be a good fit for me? Well, today we're going to discuss active adult communities and see if this type of environment is the next place you're going to call home. First, what is an active adult community? When I first heard the name and saw these places advertised, I think of assisted living or retirement communities or something where guys are driving around little go-karts going to play golf and little old ladies are walking the poodle. But the reality is, active adult communities or 55 plus communities these days are really for people who are thinking about downsizing to free up more time for themselves. They may still be working. They're very self-reliant, and they may want a community where it might be a little bit quieter, where they don't have to spend their weekends on house and yard maintenance, where the amenities cater more to their needs and their preferences now than when they were in their 20s. The first rule of a 55 plus active adult community is one of you needs to be 55 plus if you're doing this with a partner. And in a lot of these communities, although the grandchildren are welcome to come visit you, can't come live with you. Secondly, because everyone is 55 plus, you're now surrounded with people who may be like-minded from your generation and share some of your interests, which means making new friends just got a whole lot easier. And with that in mind, we come to the amenities. 55 plus active communities have a ton of amenities, from golf courses, if golf is your thing, pickleball courts, gardening, fitness centers, pools, exercise classes, yoga classes, book clubs, art classes, and several of them even have restaurants right on the premises, so you don't even have to get in your car and drive somewhere at night to have an evening out. There's also usually a bunch of organized events for the community members, so you can easily join into a group that shares your interests. Now, we have a lot of active adult communities to choose from here in the Denver metro area, and they're even building a new one out in Parker, which I'll have to do a video on soon. But one of my all-time favorites is Windsor Gardens. I did a video on it, so you can go ahead and check it out. The link is in the description. Not only do I have friends and clients who live there, I simply love Windsor Gardens' location. It's near the Highline Canal, and that is a great place to go walking, to walk your dog, to go bicycle riding, all wonderful ways to get out and enjoy our lovely Colorado weather. The other feature I loved about Windsor Gardens is that they have a community garden where you can volunteer to work the garden. So for people who are downsizing, this means you don't have to give up your gardening if it's not something you're quite ready to do yet. And that brings me to the next advantage of 55 plus communities, and that is that they're usually low maintenance. Most people who are thinking about moving into these type of communities are looking to downsize or even right size. Because if you have the big house and the big yard, which is a lot of work, these communities are going to offer you smaller living. So if you're looking at a patio home, a townhome, or a condo in these communities, the exterior as well as all the landscaping is usually taken care of by the HOA, freeing you up to enjoy most of the activities that you would like to be doing. That's why, as you're looking around at these communities, you may want to be identifying communities that have the amenities that you enjoy, as well as offering you options for you to explore. Now, earlier I mentioned a lot of these places having restaurants right within the community so that you don't have to drive somewhere to go out to eat. But a lot of these communities are located not too far from things like shopping and dining. So if that's something that you like to do, you can easily go ahead and do it. And for those of you that may not want to drive, say the weather isn't great, a lot of places will have shuttles that will take you shopping or to shopping areas so that you can go ahead, do your shopping, and then simply get back on the shuttle and let somebody else drive you home. Another aspect of these communities is their safety and security support systems. Some of these places are gated and others have 24/7 security staff. They all have well-lit areas, and they're usually updating their fire alarms and smoke detectors and other safety features on a regular basis. In fact, Windsor Gardens, which tends to be more of a condo townhome community, is not a gated community, but it does have safety features like underground parking with secure access to the elevator, security doors on the buildings where you need your key or passcode to go ahead and get in, and attached garages in the townhomes, as well as 24-hour security staff on the premises. Another advantage of 55 plus communities is accessible floor plans. Usually patio homes or ranch style, condos are one level with access through an elevator. This makes these communities great for aging in place because you don't have to worry about future mobility issues. And if you do develop some mobility issues, it's easy to to adapt your space to accommodate you. Now, although this might sound just right for you because you're thinking about downsizing or right-sizing and you're loving the idea of a 55 plus active community, there are some, what I like to call, challenges to living in these communities that you should be aware of and weigh against all the good things the communities have to offer as you make your decision. Now, the first one is going to be the HOAs. You know, if you're moving into a community like this, they usually have very strong HOAs, and the HOA fees can be quite hefty because all these amenities and all the security is something you're going to be paying for, and you usually pay for it through the HOA. Now, HOAs in these communities usually cover the normal things like common area ground maintenance, water, sewer, recycling. They may also cover capital reserves. And in some cases, I've seen communities here in the Denver metro area, like a Windsor or Heather Gardens, include your property taxes into the HOA as well as your heat, making your bills just electric and internet. Now, no matter where you buy, HOAs are something you definitely want to look at. They have their own set of pros and cons. But before you move into a community, you definitely want to review HOA documents. These include things like financials and reserves. Are they strong or weak? Weak financials might mean that you're hit with a special assessment for things like roof replacement or another major update to the community. You also want to take a look at the last few months of recorded minutes from the meetings. This is a great way to get an idea of what is being discussed at the HOA meetings and how many or how much of the community is involved in those meetings. Then, of course, you definitely want to look at the rules and regulations. These are going to affect how you live inside the community, what pets are allowed in the community, how are visitors treated in the community, and how are upgrades or remodeling to your unit or your property within the community going to be handled. It's important to look at all of this so that you know if the community is going to be a good fit for you when you move in. Another maybe con or pro, well, depending upon where you're at in your life, is the ratio of men to women. I don't know about you, but I'm a big meetup attendee, and I've noticed through the years as I get older, there seems to be that 2/3 women, 1/3 men at most of these meetups. And when I looked into the active 55 plus communities, you kind of start to see the same pattern. You see where there might be something like 3 women to every guy. So if you're hoping to find somebody to partner up with in a community, I'm going to keep my fingers crossed and wish you well, because sometimes the numbers might be stacked against you, or may the odds be ever in your favor if you're a guy. Now, I have girlfriends who, on the other hand, really just don't care. They're loving the fact that they got plenty of people around that they can hang with and do things with. And as you look at these communities, you have to weigh what they're offering with what you would find appealing for your lifestyle. Now, another con might be the flip side of actually having all these people around you and this ease of making new friends. And that's the fact that these communities, especially if you're in a condo or a townhome community, you have a lot of people very, very close to you. And sometimes if you're used to living in a house where you had a little more elbow room between you and your neighbor, and not everybody knew what was going on in your world, and maybe you had a place where you had fencing around your property and you felt you had your privacy, you may feel a little bit of a loss of that. The closeness of all these people near you, depending upon whether you live in a townhome or a condo community where basically your neighbors are right there. And if you have a great neighbor, that is awesome. But sometimes if you're coming from a house or you're coming from where you had a little more elbow room and a lot more privacy, it may feel a bit invasive. I know one of the 55 plus communities where they actually assign what's called hall monitors. Yeah, doesn't that sound like high school? Well, the reality is I think they have to do that because of the wide age ranges, and they want to make sure that everyone's okay, which I think is great. But sometimes that means everybody gets to know your business. So it's another thing to consider when you're looking around at this type of community. Is it really going to be for you? Because quite honestly, when you're in that close proximity to people, sometimes it's a lot like going back to high school. You know, I've heard some places have cliques. Sometimes you have the bullies, you've got the nosy busybodies, and you've got the ones that want to be in charge. You know, I think I would be one of those. And on the flip side, I've heard people love stuff like this where they're heavily involved and they have wonderful neighbors. So again, as with any move, these are just some of the things you want to consider when you're looking at these communities compared to maybe how you've been living before. So what's it going to be for you? Have you had experiences like this? Are you enjoying living in a 55 plus community? Or are you thinking of exploring one? Let me know. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Leave a comment down below. Because in the scheme of things, this is really your personal decision. And I hope and wish for you that you have a lot of options in front of you. Like, maybe you're moving into a multi-generational family home, like my neighbor did with her adult daughter and family. Or maybe you're like my client who has an adult granddaughter who's come to live with her in her new townhome. Or maybe you're creating your own Golden Girls housing by having a house that you're sharing with your best buds. Or maybe, like one of my friends, you're enjoying living while still working in a 55 plus community. The best thing is you get to choose. And if you're here in our Denver metro area, I'd be happy to help you find just the right space for you. Hi, my name's Peggy Durstoff, a realtor with Live Denver Suburbs, powered by HomeSmart. And if you enjoyed this video, I hope you check out this one over here, where I talk about preparing a house for sale and the top 5 things you need to be aware of. Go ahead and check it out. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you on the next video.